Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Captain's Recap. So this is going to be a season-long series where I and a different guest every week are going to run through all of the big happenings of the previous week here in the BHDL4. Obviously, we're starting with week one today, and joining me for the week one recap is none other than Emeraldminer, fellow commissioner here in the BHDL. Welcome, Emeraldminer.
Right, people, we're here, and I'm just telling you, we got some fire games this week. I mean, this is straight out of. I mean, I don't even know what you want to call it, but just an absolute barn buster of a week to start us off. A lot of
Yes,
epic games and lots of cool stuff that happened.
absolutely. There's a lot of games I'm excited to talk about as well. Um, some I'm not so excited to talk about, but we'll get to that. Well, one, but
Oh yeah, definitely some highs and lows in this week.
absolutely, yeah. But thank you for joining me to talk about this. Definitely think you were the man for the job. So, yeah, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into this by taking a look at our first match, and I am just going to run down the list basically from the document where it does the schedule. I'm going to do the games in order as they appear on the schedule for the BHDL document, just to kind of simplify things. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much all the intro we need for this. It's pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. So, yeah, having said that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first game. And that, of course, is going to be Silver versus Cobra, the Legends of Lapras versus the Too Cool Typhlosions. And Emerald, since I know you just watched this match, it's fresh in your mind, so I'll let you kick things off. But first, what do you think about these teams when you look at them on paper? We have obviously on the side of the Legends of Lapras with Silver, you got the Iron Valiant, the Hisuian Gudra, the Glamora, Terra Lapras, big heavy hitters there. The Landorus, of course, and then versus the Too Cool Typhlosions, you have the heavy hitters and great defensive core of the Roaring Moon, Goldengo, Galarian Weezing, the Terra the Dunsparce and Hisuian Typhlosion. Lots of good stuff on both sides, but what do you make of this match on paper?
I've really been interested in seeing this match because as I remember we were talking about the Silvers team, it kind of just felt like they didn't really have the best. It was like they had a lot of good pieces, but they couldn't figure out how to put them together. And then on Cobra's side, um, I felt like there was a lot of good stuff, but I was just kind of I mean, they've got obviously the Roaring Moon and the Typhlosion to have a lot of power, but it just felt like some of their mons, like the Gligar and the Dunsparce, just left me wanting a little bit more. But they did get a lot of good mons like the Iron Hands and the Golden Go. So
Indeed.
in terms of the actual matchup itself, it felt like the Iron Valiant went in versus a lot of the Mons, and they needed something to stop that, like either well, even the Amoonguss and Weezing Galar, although they made some transactions, so I'm trying to figure out which ones were present during the team.
Yeah,
But it just really felt like Iron Valiant went in versus their team.
I agree.
Meanwhile, Cobra had a potential the Gyarados could also have done some stuff to their team. So they had Mons on both sides that could go in offensively, but also wall each other defensively. So it kind
Yeah,
of even to me. I don't know what you
I was
thought.
just yeah, I was gonna say, looking at this match on paper, I feel like it was pretty even actually, because they both these were both teams that I think we both kind of liked when we talked about them doing the power rankings, but at the same time they both had their flaws too. Um, Especially I remember with the Cobras team, the lack of priority. Nothing aside from fake out Iron Hands was a big thing. So it felt like I agree
Yeah.
with you. It felt like if Iron Valiant could like set up, or if anything really on Silver's team could get a setup, that there might not be a lot that Cobra can do to stop it. But yeah, overall I think a pretty even match on paper. So as far as what actually happened to this game, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the results real fast. And as you can see, Silver came away with the victory in this one 1-0, a very narrow victory, but Silver managed to squeak it out here. So looking at the numbers from that game. Definitely on Silver's side, it looks like the Iron Valiant put some work in, the Hysuian Gudra put some work in, but as well on Cobra's side, the Espeon put some work in. The Iron Hands actually put some work in, as I'm sure Scorpion will be happy to see. But but overall, I think I watched this match kind of loosely, and there were a lot of strange and questionable sets in this game. Very innovative, I think. But like I said, you were the one that watched this match most recently. So what did you make of the match, Emerald?
We talk to you about the battle of the Dynasty in B-Nard. First of all, you'll notice there's no hazard control for either side. The
Yes.
only thing that Cobra had was a Magic Mounts Espeon. Not only that, Silver decided to lead off with I don't know if have you ever seen a Focus Sash Landorus?
I have not. No, I've
I
never.
don't think
I've.
I have. You Focus Sash Landorus, that's one way to get your rocks up, you know. They saw there wasn't any hazard removal and like, you know what? I'll take it.
uh,
Um
Definitely
from
not the
there
best
though, they
use.
kind of just went on they
Not the
went
best
on to
use of
just kind
Landorus.
of trade a lot of trades, you know, like you had the Ice Punch immediately from Iron Hands, but then you had a situation where this Umbreon versus this Dunsparce were locked in versus each other. The Dunsparce paralyzed the Umbreon, not realizing that it might be synchronized, or maybe I think in the spoiler chat they said, oh, it's a 50-50 shot at synchronized, and sure enough it was. So this
uh,
Dunsparce, this was the critical point, really. The fact that this Dunsparce was paralyzed at the end. Um, because that would come in later.
yeah,
And but even so, it was a battle of just paralysis versus paraflinch and just wishing versus roosting. Finally, they decided to end it, and it ended up. There was a cool play that Silver made with the Gudra. I think that they might have been baiting the Gligar to come in versus the Espeon because they went for Earthquake on the
yeah,
Espeon. Then they immediately followed up with an Ice Beam, which hit directly into the incoming Gligar and took it out. So I
yeah,
thought that was a pretty good play. But
definitely.
overall, I mean, just a lot of and it wasn't just on Cobra side where they went for I mean, Silver went for a toxic into an immunity Gligar. So
Yeah.
I guess you could just say that they both got some experience from this game.
Yeah,
Um
I would agree with
not
that
only that, they
statement.
had choice band Iron Hands, 2 at KO. Well, of course, the Umbreon was chipped, but Terra Poison Umbreon was taken out by a choice band Iron Hands using Drain Punch, which
Yeah.
I thought was pretty funny too.
Oh yes.
I mean, just but at the end of the game, it was crazy. I don't know why this Lapras was 0 speed IVs relaxed because that was the only way that it got outsped by a paralyzed Dunsparce. Can you imagine, Benar?
Wow, you
Like,
really did the
what
homework
was
on
going
that
on
one.
here?
Yeah, what was the
Yeah,
logic?
well, I looked it up because I was like, how did this happen? And then sure enough, they confirmed in the chat, like that's the only way it happened. So I guess um Silver must have bred this thing with a 0 speed IV Ditto.
For a reason.
And at the end, though, what it all came down to was this Dunsparce, which had been synchronized into paralysis, got paralyzed versus the Iron Valiant,
Yeah.
and then was 2 KO'd by Moonblast. What a tragedy here. But
Yeah.
but no, you could call it a Shakespearean tragedy, though. I mean, it's pretty funny if you're watching it from the outside, but I feel bad for Cobra.
Yeah, it was a very I'm gonna say a very unorthodox game. Let's put it that way. The Focus Sash um, Landorus. I think Joey Fontaine would be rolling over in his grave if he was dead about that. Um, but no, there was definitely. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Very strange sets and some questionable plays, but I think these are two new coaches here in the VHDL, and I think I don't know how experienced either of them are in draft league, but I think it definitely seemed like they were more just kind of going out there and trying some wacky stuff, trying to have a good time, which, you know what, I can't fault them for that because this is a competition, but at the same time you're trying to have a good time, so I can't fault them for that. But
It made for a great viewing experience, very enjoyable game to watch.
we're glad that we have to be glad that Cobra twisted Silver's arm
Joey
into
Fontaine
recording
it,
the
bro.
game. Yes, to get that Fontaine style recording. So, um, but yeah, there you have it. That's that game. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about it. So we're gonna go
That's
ahead.
about it for that one.
Yep. So we'll move on. Like I said, Silver takes the win there, 1-0. So with that, we will move on to our next game, which is going to be Stefan versus Brandon P. The Battle of the Grand Lake Garchomps versus the Piedmont Triad Kickers. So, looking at this matchup on paper, on Stefan's side, you have some pretty powerhouse stuff like the Garchomp, the Hisuian Samurott, of course, the Urshifu single strike. This was a battle of the Urshifus, actually. Um,
Sir.
and then, of course, you have the Rotom Heat, the Terra Tauros, and the Terra Diancie with the Monkey Dory. Stefan is pretty much a hazard stack dot team, as we had discussed. And then on Brandon P's side, he's got stuff like the other Urshifu, the Rapid Strike. He's got the Cinderace and the Terra Whimsicott, Archaludon, and Thundurus Incarnate, and then the Terra Flygon is a big hitter, and the Alolan Muck. Um, so looking at this matchup on paper, I almost kind of felt like Brandon may have had a little bit of the advantage, only for the fact that he had a really strong fighting type with Urshifu Rapid Strike, and Stefan's team seemed kind of weak to fighting. But outside of that, I guess not. Again, a pretty close match on paper. But if I'm looking at these teams on paper, I would kind of have to give a little bit of the edge to Brandon. I also think Brandon has had better speed control on his team, and also a little more well-rounded. But what do you think, Emerald?
I agree with that. But and what I had written was that Brandon had a bit more speed, but Stefan had a bit more bulk. I mean, he's got the Diancie, the Orthworm. I mean, Garchomp and Rotom Heat can be a little bit bulky too. I mean, even Urshifu. Of course, Brandon does have Muckalola and Archaludon, but Flygon, Whimsicott, and Cinderace, they're not switching in on anything.
Exactly.
So, but of course, they are. His whole team's a lot faster than most
Yes.
of Stefan's team. So it's kind of interesting that dynamic.
And of course, we almost forgot the prankster on the Whimsicott, so that's a whole nother
Oh
level of
yes, of course,
speed.
of
But,
course.
but yeah. So as far as that matchup goes, as it turns out, it was actually Stefan who took the win in this game, 2-0 actually. Pretty close matchup, pretty competitive matchup, I think. Looking at the numbers for that match, and it seems like on Stefan's side, the Rotom Heat put some work in. The Urshifu Rapid Strike and the Diancie actually both put work in as well. And then on Brandon's side, it looks like, sure enough, that Urshifu Rapid Strike put a lot of work in, though not quite enough to get him over the finish line. But yeah, what did you make of this game, Emerald? I thought it was a pretty even match through and through. I think both coaches brought it to this game. But what's your take?
Be remiss if we didn't mention the caveat of how the Rotom Heat got those 2 kills, because Cinderace, um, went for a HJK, high jump kick onto it, and, kept crashing.
The infamous
Then,
miss.
took a full-on overheat to the face and died.
Yes.
So, that was Brandon's only form of hazard control. Interesting too that, Stefan doesn't have any form of hazard control on his team, but, that was the Rotom Heat's first bit of hacks. Then it came later when our Chaldon came hard. I think it came hard in on Rotom Heat, going for overheat, and it got crit and just died and won. I've never seen Rotom Overheat kill anything on neutral, but I guess that just goes to show that our Chaldon has decent SPDF, but not enough for a crit overheat from a Rotom Heat.
No, no.
Um, so that was a bit unfortunate, but there was some other cool interactions. Like I did see that Orthworm tried to go for the Metal Burst on the Urshifu, but
Yes.
I don't know if I don't know if Brandon was trying to play around this intentionally or if he was doing something else. But he smartly went for the surging strikes over the Drain Punch because the way Metal Burst works is if it's a multi-hit move, it goes off the last hit. So it
Oh,
didn't do
interesting.
anything. Versus if he went for Drain Punch, he probably would have died and lost his Urshifu.
Interesting.
So that was great. Brandon also went for he was able to get an encore off to stop a Garchomp from sweeping. So that was pretty cool too. But
Yes.
overall, I mean, just those that Rotom Heat putting those big dents into Brandon's offense,
Yeah.
unfortunately stopped him,
The hacks.
which was a little bit tragic. We did get to see
Yeah.
the Flygon go for -2 alluring voice into the Urshifu single still did about 50% because it's 4 times super effective. I thought that was cool. But,
Yes, absolutely.
other than that, yeah, Brandon just faced some hurdles that he just couldn't quite overcome in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think we see this a lot in Pokemon generally, but particularly in Draft League too. When you have two coaches and two teams that seem like they're so evenly matched, or they're running an even game, it all it really takes is like that one hack moment, right? Like it just takes one moment, like one critically timed hack to throw the game in one person or another's favor. You know what I mean? It's very when it's that close, there's like no room for error. And just something like that, like a high jump kick miss, for example, something like that could easily swing a game. So, um, but yeah, definitely a hard fought match on both sides, I would say. But um, but yeah, moving along to our next one here. Once again, a 2-0 victory for Stefan. So, good start for him. But moving on to our next game, we are going to have none other than Anastasia and Team Aquamarine, the reigning BHDL champion, versus Abomination, newcomer to the BHDL, and his ABCDEFG Athabasca Miltanks. So, um, I'll be honest with you, this was the game that I was looking most forward to this entire week because I was very, very interested to see, obviously, with Anastasia being the reigning champion, to see her back in action. But I was also very interested to see how Abomination would handle the game because while he is a new coach to BHDL, he is certainly not new to Pokemon or Draft League. He is a very seasoned Draft League veteran. He's a very capable battler, so underestimate him at your own peril. Um, and so when I look at these teams on paper, obviously on Anastasia's side, you have that Fairy Dragon Steel Core with the Dragapult Primarina Corviknight. So much power there too. Ogerpon Hearthflame, same deal. And then of course the Terra Captain Galarian Articuno, and yeah, other stuff like the Incineroar and the Terra Captain Toedscruel. So solid team through and through versus the Athabasca Miltanks with that Great Tusk Clefable Dragonite. Which, when you look at those three Pokemon on the same team, you're just like, what the hell, like it's a combination of Pokemon that you're like, I guess, and then you see the Heatran, you're like, well, I guess we're just playing standard OU, right? but
You see the
um,
Suicune and the Vileplume, and it's just like, "How do I break this?"
exactly, yeah, and that Terra Captain Jolteon, and Vileplume being a Terra Captain as well, just so strong. Um, Looking at these teams on paper, I would have to say I think actually Abomination has the matchup on paper. He has a little bit of an advantage. It's pretty close, but I think his team is just a little more well-rounded and can output more damage. That's just my opinion. But what's your take about these two teams on paper, Emerald?
I think this is a much more extreme version of what we were talking about with Brandon versus Stefan, where we've got a lot of bulk on one side and a lot of speed and power on the other.
Yep,
I mean, the Colt, one of the fastest things that there is, and also Ogerpon, very strong. Even, I mean, Primarina might not be as fast, but it's very strong too. Articuno, just a lot of
indeed,
hard hitting stuff versus just a bunch of walls over there, Clefable and Suicune and stuff like that. Um,
absolutely.
but overall, yeah, I'd still give the edge to Abomination here for sure.
Fair enough. And so, as we look at those match results, we will see that, in fact, Abomination did win this game, a 3-0 victory in his favor. I will say we'd be remiss if we didn't note that there were some disconnect issues with this game. So we were told there were definitely I think at least one, if not two, disconnects on this game. So that definitely made it hard for the players to try to get through it, but they did get through it. Looking at this game, because like I said, this was one of the games, if not the game, I was most interested in this week, just for these, to see these two coaches face off. But on Abomination side, the Clefable surprisingly put a lot of work um, in this game, but the Terra Jolteon also really shined as well. On Anna's side, really kind of a mix of different things. It looks like the Ogerpon, Hearthflame, the Galarian Articuno, the Primarina all put some work in this game here. Watching this game, I will say, in my personal opinion overall, I think Abomination prepared very well for this game. He brought exactly what he needed to bring as far as spreads and sets with Pokemon, and he played very, very well in this match. Anastasia, despite being the reigning champion, I definitely will say I don't think this was her finest hour, and I understand, it happens with the disconnects, and you kind of start to lose your will to go on sometimes. And believe me when I say we're going to get to that later on in this
Yeah.
show. But yeah, definitely I think Abomination played better than she did in this game. But I also think he you could tell he really applied himself to this game, and he took it very seriously. And I think all those factors were running in his favor. But what did you think of the game?
Yeah, it really felt like he kinda went in with a plan because it seemed like, I like to sometimes compare Pokemon to like a chess game. It seems like he was going for
Absolutely.
like a pawn sacrifice right at the start because he sent out the Vileplume, stayed in versus Ogerpon.
Oh, that play was
I guess he
wild.
needed specifically to be able to, live the Ivy Cudgel
Yes.
and then get it, Sludge Bomb. It said it was in range of the, Stealth Rocks
Yes,
to
that was
end,
a wild,
so that this
wild bring.
Ogerpon was basically out of commission. So
Yes.
he used one of his walls right off the bat, and it's a good wall too because that wall is Primarina. Like, oh, I guess you get Ice Beamed, but, he was very tactical with that. And then also, he was able to, I guess, bait in the Dragapult with the Cinccino using triple axle. Now, he did get a crit on the first triple axle hit, but
Yeah.
based on what it calced, I think it still did 100% no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't maybe the Pult had some investment. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but based on
Yeah.
what I calced, it seemed like he was good there with
With that
the
play,
triple
yeah.
axle. Um, and then, of course, but the biggest thing was this Clefable just paralyzing everything
Oh, that was
and
brutal.
just doing these shenanigans. And it was a long time where we had a similar exchange with the Umbreon versus the Dunsparce, but even longer because this Farigiraf just kept on wishing, and the
Yes.
Clefable just kept on moonblasting it, and it kept on getting paralyzed. This Clefable was at like 9 HP or something, just 1v1ing this Farigiraf. It was crazy.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so I guess one of the kills that the Fable has might have been the stealth rocks that it got it because I think that
Yes.
Abomination
That was
specifically
the
tried
last one.
to remove the sand slash, waited to get up the rocks until after the sand slash was gone for the ogre pond.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so good thinking on their part.
Yeah, I will
But let me tell
yeah.
you what though, I will say that I know that Anastasia is about to come back with a vengeance. And
Yes.
unfortunately, I'm going to be the target of
Your head's going to be first on the chopping block, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm scared.
yes, I quote scared. I don't blame you. So I got to face her later on in the season as well. So, but yeah, I agree with all that. The Stealth Rock took out the Ogre Pond Hearthflame at the in the final turn with, that's how that played out. But yeah, I will say, like I said, Anastasia, I take nothing away from her as a battler. She's a great battler, built a great team. But I think we all have those like off moments and those off days. Like that Dragapult switch was, I feel like, in my personal opinion, that was an unnecessary risk. Because we know Cinccino can carry the triple axle. So, obviously that was a big risk in her, on her side, I think. And that was kind of a big turning point because losing a Pokemon like Dragapult before it can really do anything is like really devastating, of course. Um, but
Because
yeah,
then at that point, then the Jolteon outspeeds everything on your team.
exactly. So yeah, so I think, like I
Yeah.
said,
One other thing too about the Jolteon was that they were running Electro Balls. That's why they had Thunder Wave on both Cable and Dragonite, so they could
yes.
paralyze their whole team and spam Electro Ball. It was
Y-
crazy.
Yes, it was. Like I said, this guy, like I said, underestimate him at your own peril because he brings some wild stuff, but he makes it work. And like I said, I think he went hard in this game. And like I said, I think Anna for with the I have no doubt. I think the disconnects were probably part of it. Just kind of losing the will to go on, but take nothing away from either player. It was still a solid match through and through, but yeah, Abomination takes it in that one. So. Um, but moving along, we are going to come to, of course,
My
the
match.
yes, your match. I can't wait to get the inside scoop on this one from you directly. So we have Emeraldminer and his Demolition Force taking on Pokemaster 88, and the California Trail Blazers. So when I look at this matchup on paper here, obviously on Emerald side, you got that Greninja Annihilate Metagross. A lot of power there, a lot of bulky offense with the Annihilate and the Metagross, the Rillaboom as well. Then you got the Terra Captain Hitmonlee putting in work, the bulky offense of the Moltres, and of course Dragalge for some nice wall power as well. Um, Versus on the other side with Pokemaster, you've got of course the mascot, the Meowscarada, and the Iron Moth. Some premier high point value threats there. You've got that Scarm for defense and bulk. Same thing with the Swampert. You've got the Terra Captain Hitmontop and Alolan Raichu. Florges is pretty bulky as well. So when I look at this matchup on paper, I kind of feel like once again this is pretty even on paper. I want to say both
We
teams have
got the
their.
battle of the protein starters. I
Yep,
mean,
I
they're
was.
basically almost the same speed. It's just one of them. Although the one that's faster is also super effective versus me.
Yes, that's a problem too. But yeah, the battle of the Protean starters. Pretty. I want to say relatively even on paper, but obviously this is your match. So give us your insight into this, Emerald.
So right off the bat, I feel like Pokemaster did a great job of keeping the initiative up. I definitely played a little bit too safe, I think, and he was able to make those reads and switch in and do his thing. He was able to keep his Skarmory very healthy, and
Hmm.
also although I did pack, because I knew that Swampert most likely would be Spadef because the Scarm is already so physically defensive. So that's why even though I had Grass not on Grin, I wanted to have another Grass type move. So I put Trailblaze last minute on Metagross to hit that
Yes.
pesky Swampert, but it didn't quite take it out.
Yes.
Um,
Unfortunately.
but the biggest thing though, was that I planned I was expecting a Power Gem Meowscarada, um, which I don't honestly, I need to check their site. I don't know if they brought that. I know it was Scarf of Spikes, but
Yes.
I thought that they were gonna have that. But instead, they just had Meteor Beam Iron Moth, and they just took out my Voltrez. I was looking, I was like, because they brought it hard in, I was like, why did they do this? You know, they know I
Yes.
was gonna Scorching Sands them. And then I was like, well, I guess it could Specs Discharge, but I can live it because I have a Spadef investment, so I'm good. And then no, the meteor beam got me. They got me good.
Oh,
Got
I
that
was
meteor
gonna
beam.
say, yeah. If
And
we,
then after that, the rest of my team just got. Not only was my team already weakened, but
yeah,
the rest of my team just got gooped by this Hitmontop here. Very good Pokemon.
yes,
Severely outclasses my own Hitmonlee.
yes,
So Pokemaster definitely played much better. I think prep better as well. They had a lot of good sets to counter my team. So they definitely deserve the win in this one. I gotta get my head in the game as it were after this one.
yep. So as you can see there, of course, Pokemaster. If in case you couldn't tell by Emerald's commentary, Pokemaster did take the win
Kind
in
of
this one.
hold it there, but yeah.
Yes, 3-0 victory. There were a couple of moments because I did watch this game, and there were a couple of moments that stood out to me. One of the big ones, like you said, was the Meteor Beam Iron Moth, and so I know you didn't know that it got Meteor Beam, and to be honest with you, I didn't know it got Meteor
Well,
Beam
looking
either.
back on it, as soon as it happened, I could remember some moments in like VGC where I've seen this thing go for like a meteor beam into like an Ogrepon Arflame or something like that. Like I can remember that,
Yeah,
but it wasn't until I saw it that I remembered. It's one of those things that just like got suppressed. I guess I don't know.
as a repressed
I'm
memory.
sure you've had those moments too.
I have, yes, absolutely. I think I had a couple of them when we were doing the power rankings, actually. Yeah, so because I thought
All right, yeah.
Pokemon got moves that they didn't and whatnot. So, I definitely identify with you there. But yeah, that was a big moment in the game for me. Obviously, devastating moment. Of course, another big moment that sticks out to me was the Trailblaze Metagross. I thought that was really smart on your part to hit the Swampert. And it did so much damage there. But another thing about that Trailblaze Metagross that really stuck in my mind is the next turn or a little bit later, he makes the switch into Scarm, right? And you hit the Scarm with the Trailblaze on Metagross. I
With the
have to,
Rocky helmet, yeah.
yes, I have to say, the one thing that stuck out to me about that was I was watching Skarmory's health bar when the move hit, and it was the first time I think I've ever seen a Pokemon take an attack and its health bar not move. Because that's how little damage it did. Because it's like X4 resistant, it's not stab, it's base power 50. Skarm has ridiculous defenses, right?
Yeah.
So I that's just a little thing, but I
I should
just
have thought more about that. My thing, I that was just me being greedy because I was like, if I get to +2, I can outspeed Iron Moth and hit it with a Psychic Fangs.
it's funny you
And
should
I'm
say
like,
that
oh
because
wait a minute, they have a Skarmory.
it's funny you should say that because that was my thought process too when I was watching you do that. I was like, oh, if he's smart, he'll go for Trailblaze because then he'll be at +2 and he'll outspeed the Iron Moth. That was exactly what I thought. And then the
What I
Scar.
really should have done was known the Scar was coming and go hard Moltres.
Yes, yes,
But
but
you know, hindsight's 2020.
of course, yeah. So that's the and then that happened, and I was like, ah, shit, that's right, the damn Scarm. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was wild. Obviously, looking at the numbers, Hitmontop, like you said, really put in work, especially in the late game. Um, on your
Yeah, that's a
side,
good Pokemon. I really got to use Hitmontop in draft because that's like my dream spinner. Imagine you can have Intimidate or the Technician. You get the beautiful Technician, Triple Axle, Mach
mhm,
Punch, Rapid Spin. They're all boosted. It's so good,
absolutely,
and it's also pretty bulky. You can easily run Assault Vest if you wanted to.
absolutely, yes. It's not a bad play at all. So,
That's
um,
better than Hitmonlee.
yeah, I mean Hitmonlee. I will tell you from my personal experience with Hitmonlee, I really like Hitmonlee, but it has a very specific niche that it has to fill essentially, and it's not as all purpose as you want it to be or as you would hope it would be. It's a good unburdened sweeper, um, but it's not a very good spinner. I don't think it just doesn't have the bulk. Um, but yeah, it's
Terra type Fairy. I think if I went for Terra Fairy over maybe like Terra Dark, I think that could have served me here because the Terra Fairy on a fighting type is always good
yeah,
for that extra coverage.
yes,
But you know, hindsight's 2020.
fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, with that, we will go ahead and move on to the next one there. And that is going to be, of course, the Pokemon Scholar and Vila Raymond and the Mamoswine Doubters taking on Arcaniner and the West Texas Arcanines. So, looking at this one on paper, we got the Latios, the Ogerpon, and the Terrapagos and the Tinkaton. A lot of bulk and some power there on Raymond's side. Obviously, of course, he's got the Tornadus Therian as well. A lot of utility on that, and then the Lantern and the Blaziken Terror Captains. So facing down Arcaniner's squad, it's actually this is the battle of the Lotties because he's got
Yes,
Latias on
absolutely.
Arcaniner's side. With the Weavile, the Don Fan, the Entei. So, again, a lot of bulky offense here. Um, Terra Captains, Inteleon, and Electros. And then, of course, he's got Gengar and Lucario for some more power and speed. So, looking at this matchup on paper, it's kind of hard, honestly, because I don't know. This is another one where I feel like if I look at these teams on paper, I do actually almost feel like Ray has the edge on paper, and maybe I'm just saying that because he's Ray. But I feel like a lot of his
You can
poke.
see it because look at he's got the Tinkaton, the Mamo, the Terapagos, all this bulk
Yes,
versus look at these paper thin Mons over there, Inteleon, Weavile, Lucario, you know what I mean?
Gengar. Yeah, yep, yeah. So I feel like Ray does have it on. I think Ray definitely outlasts or wins the war of attrition here. So I feel like he's got the matchup on paper there. Um, but yeah, so and it sounds like you kind of agree with me there. Um,
Yeah.
So as we look at the match result here, it indeed the Scholar and Vila two-time former champion Raymond does take the victory 3-0 in this game. This was a pretty good match, I thought. It was pretty well prepped and played on both sides, I would say. I don't feel like I don't think there was anything catastrophic. I think they were both did pretty well in their prep and their gameplay. One thing that I just want to throw out there, even though I know I'm gonna take the words right out of your mouth with this one, but Assault Vest Lucario was a hell of a tech by Arcaniner, I have to say, and it took out the Terrapagos before it could do anything or do much of anything, I should say. to Raymond's
Was
surprise. So
that confirmed? I thought that it was just that it just didn't kill.
yeah, no, it confirmed it killed. It killed. It wasn't. It
No,
wasn't.
no, no. I mean, like, I thought that the Lucario just lived it naturally.
Oh no, no, no! It
I
was
was sure.
no, it was AV.
Okay,
I
I
didn't
wasn't sure. Okay.
I didn't catch your joke. I'm not swift enough, but 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 no.
Very
What
good.
What were your thoughts on the game,
Because I,
Emerald? That
because
was the,
I thought I don't know why I thought Arcanine said no, it just lived, or maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think I'm
Because
maybe.
the thing was, and that's what I was worried about with Terapagos was
Mhm,
that this thing. Keep in mind, as bulky as it is, it's only got 105 base special attack,
true,
and
true.
this what's it called? This Earth Power is not stab.
Yeah,
And let me see, what item were they? They were just lefties. They didn't have anything to boost it. So
there was no power boost. I thought and maybe I'm just messing this up again. But I seem to
yeah,
remember.
because I'm looking at the calc, I think it says 88 to 103. So I think they just got a low roll. Was that
Okay.
what I think it
Because
was?
I remember Ray just kept saying Assault Vest Lucario
I think he
over and
was
over and
convinced it
over
was
again.
assault vest, but it
Maybe,
wasn't. That's what made it even funnier.
yes, maybe I'm just taking Ray's word for it, and that's not the case. But
He
regardless,
was
that
convinced, and I understand.
yes,
But
that
I mean, listen, I was watching that, and I was thinking, I feel like because I've used Lucario before. I know I'm kind of have its like defenses locked into my head. I'm like, I'm not sure this Earth Power kills because it's not stab. And then sure enough, it's
yes, I was shocked when it didn't kill. Also, I wasn't the Lucario chipped a little bit though, or was it at full? I feel like it might have been chipped, but
I
maybe
have
I'm
the
wrong.
match pulled up. I'm pretty sure it was at full,
Okay,
if I'm
gotcha.
not mistaken. Do.
Because
But
I
yeah, it's at full.
gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
I gotta talk about this real quick because I thought it was interesting that Raymond decided to lead. Maybe they were expecting the Dawn fan to lead off, so they led right off with Terapagos, their
Yes.
spinner, and then because he's got the Terra Shell, and I guess they figured they could get some rapid spins off and start going in with the Terra Starstorm and everything like that,
Yeah.
and the Earth Power Ice Beam coverage. But unfortunately, it just couldn't quite hit as hard as it needed to. And
Yes.
then after it was chipped by the Electros, I think, then it just went down to the CC.
Yes.
And then unfortunately for Ray, I was kind of watching this. I was like, "What's going on here? This Electros is just staying in and just like did 50% to take a ton, burn the lantern. It's just dense into Raymond's team." But
Yes.
then once Ray was finally able to get rid of that darn Electros, then he could start working his magic and exerting pressure with the Tornadus and
Yes.
set up the end game sweep for the Scarf Terra fighting Blaziken.
Yes. I was gonna say Tornadus and
But it was
Blaziken.
a little scary there for a sec.
Yes, it was, but I agree. Tornadus and Blaziken put a lot of work in for Ray. Um, the Electros just wouldn't die. Like I feel like that happens to me as well. Like whenever I face anyone with an Electros, and yes, it is the only fully evolved that has no weaknesses. Aside from a Pokemon with Levitate that tears electric, but that's neither here nor there. So
Why
Electros.
Abomination put Violite Electrike.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so the Electros just doesn't want to die. The Lucario moment was crazy. Assault vest or not, no assault vest, but that was a crazy moment in the match. But the Blaziken at the end, and I know Ray was particularly proud of this. The Blaziken being able to come in and finish up at the end because it was big for him because he really wanted Blaziken to do work, and that it did. So, um, but
Yeah, as
yeah,
soon as that Lottie was gone, it
yeah,
was it was free
it
season.
was open
Open
season for
season for the
Blaziken,
Blaziken.
yeah. So,
Yep.
but definitely a big win there for Ray. To not and take nothing away from Arcaniner because he's a hell of a player, but I think in any game that Ray is
And
in,
they
I
put
think
up a good
he's
fight.
yes
They
he
gave him a
they
run for his money at the start.
absolutely he did, but I think any game that Ray's in, he's probably going to be the favorite, right? So, um, but yeah, moving on from that one, we are going to come to, of course, the notorious HIM, or as some might say, the notorious HYM, and his Brooklyn Baxcaliburs rebranded because everybody decided to rebrand their teams after we did the power rankings. You're really hurting us, guys, but it's okay. It's all good. And he is ironically taking on Scorpion and the Leaf Agents, current owner, of course, of the BHDL. So when I look at this game on paper, obviously on HIM's side, you've got stuff like the Bax Caliber Galarian Slowking combo, which is just such a strong pairing there with his first two. And then, of course, he's got the Excadrill, the Rabombi, Terra Captain Typhlosion, Terra Captain Quagsire, Terra Captain Doxbun. As I mentioned, probably the best Terra loadout of or Terra Captain setup of any coach in the league this season right now. But he's also got the Thunderous Therian and the Blastoise. Versus on Scorpion side, of course, he's got the Palafin, he's got the Zapdos, the Tinglu, all the support in the world for that Palafin. The Cyclizar, lots of pivots. The Ogerpon Cornerstone, of course. Terra Captain Delphox is always a problem. That Mimikyu with the X Factor, since it has that decoy, of course. And then Terra Primeape is also a potential menace. When I look at this matchup on paper, um, I actually kind of feel like HIM has the advantage on paper because we were talking about these teams when we did the power rankings, and it felt like HIM, his team was so close to being like one of the best teams in the league, and I think it still might be one of the best teams in the league, despite the fact that he's got a lot of exploitable type weaknesses. But I feel like he matches pretty well against Scorpion because obviously his premier threat is the Bax Caliber, and there's a lot of ice weakness on Scorpion's team. So I felt like if HIM could position the Bax Caliber properly, I feel like it could have put in a lot of work. So on paper, I would have to give the edge to HIM. But what do you think, Emerald?
That's what I thought initially as well, and I think that Scorpion, built his team with that in mind because I knew that once that Palafin went down, that, it's open season for Excalibur to just start either Jagged Dancing or doing stuff. Interestingly enough, though, I feel like Jagged Dance was the way to go this week because as well, Choice Band was good too. I mean, I can't
Yep,
say because it's great at putting holes in their team, but um,
I do agree
I
with
just
you.
think that end game sweeper, being able to switch up moves, you kind of got to do that when you're
Yes,
dealing with monsters like fairy types. Um, and also the Klefki, which but I mean, interestingly enough, Scorpion had prepped the Magnet Rise Klefki in
yes, that was
preparation of
funny.
Bax
I
Caliber.
I
But
watched
for Scorpion's side, I mean, once the if he can get rid of that darn Quagsire and that Iron Leaves, then
Palafin
Palafin
goes
can
hard.
go in too, you
Yep,
know? So
absolutely.
they both had stuff for each other.
Absolutely, I agree. And so, looking at that game result, we can, of course, see that it was actually, in fact, Scorpion that did take the win in this one. Another 3-0. There were actually a lot of 3-0 victories this week, six matches out of eight, if you can believe it. Um, but yeah, taking a closer look at this game here, we can see on HIM side, the Bax Caliber did put in work, as you mentioned, choice banned Bax Caliber. Although I felt like I do agree with you. I felt like that was a little bit of an error on HIM's part. I feel like as good as choice banned Bax Caliber is, trying for like a endgame Dragon Dance Bax Caliber would have been a better way to go. Um, but additionally, the Quagsire, although it didn't, it was a wall. It didn't really have much progress in the game, but it was a very valuable wall. Um, as far as the
Right.
Quagsire goes, as a side note, I feel like somebody, and maybe I'm going to misquote this again. I hope I'm not, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I think either Scorpion and or HIM said that there was a problem with his Quagsire that he didn't put the right Terra type. Like he was going to be Terra Poison, and then he forgot to change it to Terra
That's right.
Poison. Something.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
Right. So yeah. So that is a huge X factor. I think that who knows how that game could have gone if in fact he would have had Terra Poison on the Quagsire like he wanted to. But the Iron Leaves actually did something as well, and the Galarian Slowking set the Bax Caliber up very well, even though it didn't directly take anything out. On Scorpion's side, of course, Ting Lu put some work in, as you would expect it to, but Delphox a little bit as well. But the real star on Scorpion's side was, of course, the Ogerpon Cornerstone, getting those swords dances, just running roughshod. massive attack stat, great coverage. Yeah, just going to town there. Took out more than half of HIM's team. But what did you make of
Absolutely.
the match, Emerald?
Yeah, so this is just I really love this. That's probably one of my favorite games of the week. I mean, just a classic chess match because one of the biggest parts of this game was I'm not sure why HIM did this. They maybe I don't know if they forgot to count the turns of future sight, but um Scorpion got a future sight off from the Delphox onto the Baxcalibur and it did like 70 something percent and
Yeah,
it was severely weakened. And keep in mind another big thing about being running choice band is that you can't run heavy duty boots Dragon Dance. So that means once those rocks go up, you can't spin. That backs can only come in so many more times, and it's going to be severely weakened. And that was the case in this game. And also, one thing that I think about with Ogre Pawn Cornerstone, because I feel like sometimes it feels a bit underrated compared to its water and fire type counterparts. But the thing about rock type, it's super effective against four types. It's still a lot. And you look at the resist, I mean, the Excadrill is can get got by the Horn Leech, which it did once it set up an SD. Quagsire, Horn Leech. Realistically, the only thing stopping this Ogre Pawn from going in is the threat of Baxcalibur Ice Shard. That's it.
yeah,
So once that was gone, he was good to go. And yeah, I mean, what once that Excadrill went down and those rocks went up, I mean, it was it to me. It only just felt like a matter of time. And HIM really tried to get those sticky webs up, but once again, I mean, Scorp has one of the best spinners in the game, being Cyclozar. Super fast, has regenerated, can pivot in and out.
yep,
Um, Also, the Klefki was very difficult for HIM to deal with. It could set up screens, go for some foul play shenanigans. It was doing some stuff too, all to try to set up this. I don't know if we mentioned yet the Mirror Herb Palafin, which unfortunately
didn't get
did
to go
not get a
off.
chance to do anything as he was running banded Excalibur.
What a
But
cr-
it at least did the Palafin did serve as another deterrent to the Excalibur just starting to click like Icicle Crash or Banded Glaive Rush and stuff like that.
yep.
But overall, yeah, it just felt like Scorpion knew what they had to do. Although HIM did play pretty well, they were trying to pivot things in and out between their bulky Quagsire and their Slowking a lot. So,
Yep.
but once those rocks went up, to me it was just a matter of time before that Ogre Pawn started going in.
Yeah, so I agree with you, and I feel like the big standout or takeaways to this game to me are I feel like they both played well. Scorpion played a little better. I feel like they both prepped well. Scorpion prepped better, and I think it was just a matter of hit the those him overdoing it in those regards. Maybe even just a little too much with that Magnet Rise Clef Key was a hell of a hell of a thing to see.
I think it
Um,
was worth it. I think it was worth it.
yeah, it's Stonewall's
Because it
backs.
also well, I mean, the Execution could still go for Iron Head, but, that's gonna get foul played and take a lot.
I was gonna say I think it was more for the backs probably just because
Oh, the backs too, yeah, of
if backs
course,
was
yeah.
like Dragon Dance, Glaive Rush, like
Yeah, then you just
Icicle
wall it,
Crash,
yeah,
yeah,
but it's good for both.
Earthquake, yeah, then he just can't do anything. But you're right, it is good for that as well. But yeah, so I think those were my takeaways. Is Scorpion just? I think that's the one thing about Scorpion is that he always puts the work in and the effort in for all of these games, and that's what just makes it so difficult to face him because like I think unless your name is Raymond, you're probably not going to prep harder for a game than Scorpion. So, and even then, I would almost even say perhaps Scorpion prepares for games harder than Ray. But, but yeah, it's just very, very difficult
Yeah,
because
it's
he
close.
just thinks, yeah, he just thinks of every possible scenario, he always seems to have like something for everything. So, um,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, so Scorpion takes it in that one, and that is going to bring us into the next quote unquote game, and that is going to be my game. myself, Captain B-Nard, and my Philadelphia Pidgeys taking on the Best Not Really and the Piercing Pawnyards. So we're gonna have more of a story for this one than anything.
Yeah, I'll let you take this one because I don't really know any of the back of the story.
I'm
I don't
just
have it. There's no game to watch.
I was just gonna say there is no game. If you guys saw my video, you'll know why. But I'll kind of briefly go over it once again here. But looking at the matchup on paper, I guess we'll do that anyway, even though there isn't a game. But um, I will be honest with you, I struggled to prep for this team because of the defensive core, but more specifically, the Gliscor is just really, really hard to get over because Sneasler cannot do shit to it. And that's a big problem for me. It resists both the stabs. I ran damage calcs, and even if it's max Fizdef Gliscor, even a +2 acrobatics, which is the strongest move I can hit it with, isn't even a 2-hit KO, if you can believe it. So, like an unburdened +2 acrobatics, I think is like a roll to 2-hit KO. So that's how abysmal Sneasler is into that Gliscor. So for that reason, I mean, there's a couple other little things too, but for that reason, personally, I feel like DeBest had the advantage on paper going into this game because I did struggle to prep for this team. I will tell you that it was hard to prep for that defensive core to try and figure out a way to break it. Um, but yeah, I guess if you want to give your insight as to the matchup on paper, obviously on my side we got the Sneasler, the Gudra, the Scissor, the Rotom, and the Mudsdale. That defensive core that's pretty solid on my side. But the Terra Gudra and Mudsdale help. Then we got, of course, the Sneasler and the Indeedee Unburden combo. Driftbloom could get in on that as well. Um, but yeah, on the best side, of course, that Gliscor, Cresselia, Pheasantipede defensive core. Um, Spoiler and Empoleon as well, but Spoiler specifically, those three is just a rough. You're in for a rough time versus that defensive core. But of course, you got the power with the Kyurem, as I like to call it, um, and then you've got the Hisuian Zoroark and the low kicks in the Hisuian Electrode as well for some speed and power. But what's your take as far as the paper matchup, Emerald?
Yeah, this is a rough war to break up, especially for your team because I mean you've got the two walls that are weak to the ground, and then the two walls that are immune to ground, and then they can just keep on pivoting in
Yep.
between each of them. And then just keep on healing up with either like Moonlight Cresselia, the top Poison Heal Gliscor, Roost Pheasantipede.
It's
Does
almost like you were
Empoleon get
there.
Roost? I forgot.
It's almost like you were there in the game.
Well, I can use my
Uh,
imagination,
yes.
and but yeah, oh yeah, and Empoleon does get Roost, so there you go. Had to
All right.
confirm. But yeah, I mean, like in order to break that, I mean, I don't even know what you got to do. You got to run like I don't know, Flare Boost or Flare Boost Drift Blim or something like that to be able to hit everything like and get some Spadef drops with Shadow Ball or something like that, or just like Choice Band, Head Smash Arcanine Suit or something like that. I don't know what you got to do,
I wish I would
but
have thought of that second one.
that's a tough core to break, man. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Other than that, I mean, if you were able to, let me see, what's their hazard control? Um, well, I know they made some transactions, so I'm not sure what
it
it
was
looks like.
just they're
But
going into
right
this.
now it's Avil. Like, what was it before?
Well, I was gonna say their only hazard control was Defog Hawlucha going into the match. So that is one potential thing I could have tried to exploit was like hazard stack because I think Defog Hawlucha was their only hazard control.
Yeah, but
Um,
even then it's tough because I mean the spikes won't do anything to the
the crest of the
Gliscor or
Gliscor.
the Cresselia, so
Yep.
that's rough.
Yes,
Um,
indeed. So
wait, does anything on your team gets oh that does anything get spikes on your team?
no,
Oh,
so in
fuck.
my team right now, I think the only hazards I have something that can
You just
set
love rocks.
toxic spice and rocks. I think is it. I don't think I have anything that straight up sets spikes, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so you couldn't even do that because then the Fez just absorbs them. So yeah, that's a rough matchup, man.
my only hope in my mind. So like my strategy going into this game was. I felt like I needed to get enough chip on all of his mons and then basically just go for broke with Sneasler, and that was going to be obviously a lot easier said than done. But that was really the best strategy I could come
I
up
was gonna say,
with
look,
was
if you can get an SD up with Scizor, I mean,
yeah.
um, does Scizor naturally outspeed Empoleon? Empoleon's not that fast, so
believe
you
it
can go for
does.
like a
Yeah,
CC into that thing,
yeah,
and then you can just bullet punch everything else as long
yes,
as the what's it called? The Gliscor's weakened. So yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty much your only way.
Yep.
SD Scizor endgame.
Yep. So what actually happened, and I'm going to tell you guys, just give you the brief recap is DeBest not really ends up taking a 3-0 win in this game, technically via a forfeit. Basically, if you guys didn't see my prior video, the short version is we had the game. We got 45 minutes in. We got disconnected. So after 45 minutes of pretty much exactly what you just described, with the toxic heal and the roost and the moonlight and the pivoting and there were some hazard sets along the way there as well, and protects. So pretty much after 45 minutes of that, we got disconnected, and so that was unfortunate. We ended up doing an immediate rematch, same teams, same competitions. Kind of busted at that point because all the no secrets, everything's pretty much out in the open going into the second one. Um, got 40 minutes in and got disconnected again. So I ended up giving the forfeit because I was behind in both of the games before we got disconnected. First one said it was on him, second one said it was on me. So, maybe Pokemon was just being temperamental, but I just kind of got to a point where I was like, this is just rough. Like I feel like I'm running my head into a wall, you know what I mean? Like we do 45 minutes of pivot, recover, protect, and then get disconnected. And I was like, and then eventually my team's going to get whittled down, and that was the case in both matches that we had. In the first
All
one,
right, yeah, because I'm looking at it too. Yeah, and that another big thing that I just noticed was that,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Gliscor banned from OU for its ability to just
I
set up
think it
hazards so well?
was. I think it
Or
was
something like
banned.
that.
Yes, I think.
And so it was easily, I guess it must have just set up a bunch of spikes. And the tragic thing is that your only form of hazard removal. Oh wait, no, you have Drifloon and Sizzle, but
Yes,
it's defog. You don't have a spinner. So
correct.
if you want to get rid of hazards, you also get rid of anything you try to set up. So
Exactly.
them having all that stuff is kind of able to stop you from getting any hazards up yourself.
Yes. So I did. I will say on my side, I did have some cute tech that at first took him off guard. So I had a ice punch Grimmsnarl that took him off guard with the Gliscor. Not enough to take him out, unfortunately. Even a max attack invested Grimmsnarl ice punch X4 effective only does about 75% to a max Fizz Def Gliscor. So that's a discouraging statistic there. I know it's only not stab. It's only 75 base power, but that just tells you how bulky Gliscor is on the physical side. So that was cute. And then I
What
also
item were you on the Grimmsnarl?
I was actually dual screens with the light clay, but also I had ice punch for coverage. Um, I thought about a bulk up set, but
I think you
decided to.
should have run Life Orb.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about bulk up. There was a lot of things that kicked around in my head with this, but I ended up going with that because I thought the screens would be more beneficial. But that was a cute tech on my side, and then this scarf, Indeedee Mail, kind of sort of put some work in, kind of sort of caught him off guard a little bit, but yeah, that was about that. That was kind of the game in a nutshell, as I had just described it to you guys. So yeah, for all those reasons, and I mean, I guess technically we could have tried to like rematch different days, different teams, but I was like, you know what, I don't want that to cut into my week 2 game prep and all that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm probably just going to lose anyway because based on how those games were going, and so I was like, it is what it is at that point. It's a very unfortunate situation, but that's those were the reasons that
Yeah,
I.
because I don't think people like understand enough that like between the rock and the hard place you were caught in between, you either had to replicate a nearly impossible game to replicate with all the different intricacies that happened over the course of 45 minutes,
Hmm.
or I mean, you initially did try to start up a new game and go from there, but if you do that, you're in a situation where they know your text and they know what you can do. So now it's a case where it's a totally different game and you're not nearly as in good a position as you were initially. So it
Exactly.
goes both ways, but for you especially because your job was to try to break their team and now
Yes.
they know how you can break their team.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was definitely a rough situation all around. But just kind of is what it is. I think I'm in the same boat as you post week 1. Is I'm just like got to try to regroup and refocus on doing better next week, and just hoping.
Yeah, man, that we're in this together.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that wraps up our week one games. Now I know what you're thinking at this point, if you're paying attention, is that that was only 7 games. There's supposed to be 8. Well, in fact, what happened was one of our week one games got pushed back to week two. But fear not, we are still going to talk about an eighth game because actually there was a game from week two that was played early in week one. So on this week's episode, we're going to end with an actually a week two game that was played, and then when I come back next week, we'll talk about the week one game that was not played this week. So, having said all of that, our next game we're going to take a look at is the one from week two, and that is actually going to be of course, it is going to be RK Niner once again pulling double duty this week. Our boy RK Niner putting in the work and his West Texas Arcanines versus Biridu and his ABCDEFG Atacama Tyrannitars. So looking at this matchup on paper here, we see once again, we already looked at RK9er's team just a moment ago, but he's got the Latias, Weevil, Donphan, Entei, a lot of power, some speed, some bulk, Terra Captains, Inteleon and Electros, a little bit more speed, I think, with the Gengar and the Lucario. Um, Over on Biridu's side, we've got the Iron Treads and the Chi Yu and the Ogerpon Wellspring. Pretty strong, even just within the Chi Yu and the Ogerpon Wellspring, pretty strong fire, water, grass typings there. The Iron Treads, one of the best spinners in the game, of course. We got the Azumarill for a lot of power. Salamence, of course, power. Terra Captains, Kilowattrel, and Muck for even more power utility. So yeah, looking at this matchup on paper, I kind of feel like this is pretty even, honestly. Don't know that I'd say either of these teams really have an edge over the other one. They seem pretty evenly matched. But what do you think, Emerald?
You know, this might be the first time where we kind of disagree a little bit
All right.
because when I look at this, I see no switch-ins to Azumarill.
Ah,
Even the Gengar is just gonna get even a play rough will probably 2 KO this thing. Maybe
that's
the
true.
Aqua Jet or something like that.
That's true.
So for me, this Azu kind of just goes in, but then they've also got
What about
they
the
outspeed
Venusaur though?
everything with
What
the
about the Venusaur?
Kilowattrel.
I was gonna say
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the wait, Arcanine or the Venusaur, they didn't bring it to the
yes, that is true. That
was
that
a
did.
transaction or something. I don't know.
He
I don't
transacted
know
it.
why they didn't bring the Venusaur. Oh, they transacted it right where they needed it most. He vanished. Why?
Devastation, devastation. Um,
Tragic.
yes. So, but yeah, that is a
Well,
good
at
point.
least what I'm looking at here, Arcaniner seems to have neglected an Azumarill switch in during the actual game.
Yes, that is true. I agree with you. He did not. He did not bring the Venusaur, even though, like you said, yes, it would have been his only way to stop the Azumarill. So definitely fair point there. And so when we look at the match result here, actually, we will find out that it was in fact Biridu getting the win once again, 3-0. In this one, and as you could probably guess, as we both just kind of alluded to, Azumarill put the work in this one. Iron Treads also put some work in on Biridu's side there. On RK9er's side, it looks like Weevil put some work in. Gengar as well, a little bit to a lesser extent. But yeah, what were your thoughts on this game, Emerald? I feel like it was actually relatively well played. I think, in my opinion, this was actually the first game played, ironically, of the whole season. It was a round two match,
Yes.
which is kind of funny. But what was your take on the actual game?
Yeah, I feel like Beridu did a great job of just keeping up the pressure throughout the whole game with Azumarill and Treads at the end and even the Chiyu. It was pretty cool too because he's also, in addition to all these super heavy hitters, he's also got the Muck and the Uxie to try to take some hits. And they also they synergize fairly well defensively. And it
Yes.
was interesting seeing the Muck actually be able to switch in and take 2 snipe shots from the Inteleon and then be able to counter back with an attack. Thankfully, it did not get crit. Otherwise, it would have died. But yeah, I was like, huh, is this battle armor muck or something looking at here?
It's
Or what's going on?
very specially defensive as Muck.
Oh yeah, super specially defensive. I was just thinking like he's lucky that neither of those attack. I don't know what item the Arcaniner was on the
The Inteleon.
Inteleon, if he was scope lens or not, or just specs or something.
We're
But
not
I know
sure what the
Snipe Shot
odds.
still has a chance to
Yeah, we're
crit.
not sure what the exact odds for a crit were there, but
Either like a 25% chance or 50% chance. But
oh, 50.
either
Wow.
way, I mean, Beardo did a great job. He's got, yeah, the Assault Vest Muck was crazy. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the Choice Scarf Chiyu also goes very well into their team. So I think that Beardo had a lot of good prep and
Yep.
they played very well.
Yeah, I was gonna
Although
say.
Arcanine, he didn't go down easy. He didn't go down easy. He was putting up a fight for sure.
I was gonna say. Yeah, there was a play where Chi Yu went down, and I think he was. Maybe I'm misremembering this, but I thought it was a that wasn't there like a focus sash on something. I think that he was able to
Yes, I
survive and
believe, Focus Sash Weavile into the,
Y-
Brick Break
Yes,
for the
that's what it was.
Chiyu.
Yeah, that's what it was. So I thought that was pretty clever on RK9ers' side to get rid of that Chi Yu with that play. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Biridu just had a little more in the tank as far as prep and as far as gameplay. It was a good game on both sides, but I think Biridu just
Yeah.
gave a little
Oh, I
more.
always forgot to say that this was like the battle of the Dawn fans. You got the Iron
Yes,
Treads versus the Dawn fan, OG.
yes, absolutely. That it was as well. So, um, but yeah, definitely a solid one all around there. Um, yeah,
Yeah, so I guess that's why I can't fault Beardo for not being able to get rock because realistically, I mean, you should be able to have rocks up for the Weavile and not have to worry about that sash. But anytime you battle one of these Dawn fan family members, I mean, it's almost impossible to keep rocks up
to keep the
versus them.
hazards.
I
Yeah,
only did it one time myself, and that was because I refused to. I was willing to let my Dragapult die to keep my rocks up versus a Great Tusk.
I was just gonna say that actually reminds me of a Biridu game I think from last season. I think there was one game where like I think it was his Excadrill versus like another Pokemon. I can't even remember what it was. It might have been like Excadrill versus I can't remember what the other Pokemon was, but it was like he just kept rapid spinning and he just kept his opponent just kept setting hazards and he just kept rapid spinning. It's like Excadrill had like +6 attack by the end or something, not quite that, but something
Yeah,
crazy.
plus
So
6 speed, yeah,
those
crazy.
the hazard control, both setting and removal, is definitely can be key in a lot of these games. And with like you said with the Don fan family, it's hard to keep hazards on the board against them. But yeah, I think that caps that game off, and yeah, I think that's actually going to cap this video off. So there you have it. There are your week one games. With the caveat of -1 week one and +1 week two game. But when I come back next week, we're gonna straighten that out and hopefully get back on track here. So. But yeah, that pretty much is going to do it for this one. Definitely went a little bit longer than I thought, but I think we did a pretty good job covering all the
Man,
bases.
good, you get me talking about Mons. I talk for a long time.
No, it's all good, man. It's all about
I enjoy it.
Yes, same thing here, and it is all about the entertainment factor at the end of the day. But yeah, I think that pretty well covers it. So that's going to do it for episode one of the Captain's Recap. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. There are going to be more of these to come, one after every single week here in the BHDL4. So I would also like to thank my guest Emeraldminer for joining me to talk about the Mons. I know there are few, if any, better equipped to have the Pokemon discussion than you. So thank you for joining me.
I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It was a blast. And so, yeah, I'll be back here next week to talk about week two. But in the meantime, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. And yeah, if you liked, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for the next episode next week. So, yeah, that's it. And we'll see you next time.